Ladies and gentlemen, you all seem to like Scarlatti's music quite a lot. You've seen the reaction on the video that I made recently on another Scarlatti sonata, Kirkpatrick number 1 in D minor. As I said in that video, Scarlatti's work is not very familiar with me, so I'm discovering together with you, and I'm more than pleased to play another sonata for you. And in fact, we're going to do things a little different here. The other sonata I kind of prepared, this one is completely unprepared. So what we are going to do, I'm going to take you through my process of studying, like in a nutshell, and see what we can do with this music to revive it as a performer, because the notes are just the notes. So they're telling us kind of the story, but not the complete story. It's up to us to discover what the story is beyond the notes, how we can get this music from very flat to very expressive. And I know many of you struggle with that. And Scarlatti's music, as I said in the previous video, is actually a great entrance for more complex music, like for instance Bach, but also in this case to Mozart. This is a little bit less polyphonic than the D minor sonata, and it may lead to questions like, how do you get a simple melody expressive? What can you do on an instrument like a clavichord, on the piano, whatever instrument you're playing, a harpsichord? So I'm gonna discover this piece together with you, kind of sight read it, and take you into my journey of where are the elements, what are the elements that I see that we need to do, quote unquote, something with that. I'm again playing from Longo's edition. This is Kirkpatrick number 200, C major sonata. Never heard the piece. Longo edition. Longo was an Italian pianist. He died in the 40s, I think, of the 20th century, and he left many editions among the complete sonatas of Scarlatti. I think they're more or less complete. He metronomized those. And you know, my work is a lot of research around metronome, historical metronome reading, and if you look at Longo's metronome marks, just good luck playing them in single beat, so the modern way of reading. You have to kind of look at these metronomes in the old way, which is the pendulum way. You take 2 beats for 1. So we have here 126, perfect way of demonstrating that. That is a speed that Longo gives for the quarter note, but you will quickly understand that is actually not the case if I start playing the sonata in whole beat. So we have tack, 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 tack on the metronome, and we're going to do this 1 and 2 and 3 and 3, and then you get this tempo. I think if you've never heard this piece, this is even quite fast. Longo gives allegro. I don't know if the original score of Scarlatti gives allegro as well. You know, Scarlatti, contemporary of Bach, he shares the same date of birth with Bach as he does with Handel, which is cool, right? And so 126 for the quarter note and double the tempo doesn't make any sense. And moreover, 126 eighth note, if that is a conversion into single beat, that is like the tempo ordinario of the 18th century, like spot on. There is so much more that we could share around this, but this is not a tempo video, it is just setting the floor. 2, 4, 16th notes, 8th notes. If you look at the score, we see some ornaments, and they are important because they put also even this tempo a little bit under pressure. If you go to the bars are numbered, bar number 11, you have actually the first ornament. Again, I should look up the Scarlatti original score, the Kirkpatrick edition, to see what Scarlatti actually writes there. I'm not sure that this is the thing that Scarlatti writes, but it is an ornament there. For sure, you have to play. So you're increasing the 16th notes. And then you can say, to just practice a little bit more. Yeah, that's convenient. But you have to realize that music in that time was written for the player. Of course, sometimes challenging the player as well, because every musician in the past, every composer in the past, and even today want to make progress on all fields. They never looked back, but still it needs to be playable within reasonable measures. So the idea of playing and practicing until you can overcome the most extreme difficulties that are impossible to overcome, it's really late 19th century. We're still stuck in that idea. Music should serve also to become a better musician, person maybe I wanted to say, and in a way that's also true, but within limits. We see here an ornament, and again I'm just playing from the Longo edition, and if I play it in this tempo, if you play it on a modern piano, digital piano, that will be already challenging to play that ornament beautifully. Very rhythmical and still with articulation, so that gives me a hint that the tempo by Longo in whole beat even is like on the faster side. We have also 30-second notes if we look further. Bar 37, so we arrive here at 35. So you have 30-second notes here, and they're important because you need to give them like a certain quality of tone. But they are kind of on the edge of what you can do. I should calculate how many notes per second I would play, but it's quite a lot already. And the thing is, if we talk about tempo and notation, things like that here, we make a distinction between ornamental notes and structural notes. The 16th notes here are structural. Why? You have to be able to play more bars in that. So for instance, at the beginning. So there are consecutive notes in 16th notes value that you have to be able to play. So you have to sustain that speed longer. That's so to say the speed from which the composer actually thought the piece. But then you have notes that surpass that speed, which are the ornaments that we just demonstrated. And 30-second notes. They are ornamental. And that means they can surpass a certain speed because there are just a few notes. But again, even there you need to sustain a certain quality of touch. Of course, for many of you, I know, this will be already challenging to play that in this speed. You need to develop a certain finger speed. So to say, we are setting now the floor for what tempo we would actually eventually want to play this piece in. So I'm sharing all of that because you have to know when you start playing a piece, practicing, like what will your eventual goal be? Well, where do you want to end? What's your target, so to say? And to be honest, when I would record this piece for recording, I would go a little slower compared to the Longo metronome in whole beat because of these ornaments. Maybe not too much, but like they're an indicator. Okay, now, but for the sake of this recording, I will stick to that tempo. Let's go to the first page and see what we can actually do with that. So at the beginning, we have, compared to the D minor, the previous video that I made about Scarlatti, we have a quite simple piece, like there is not so much polyphonic things going on. So a melody in the right hand, I'm playing it very flat now, obviously. So there, if you take the Longo edition, by the way, many of you will be served as an interpretation of Longo. It's like, of course, very pianistic, but it might work. If you like it, just go ahead. There are some articulation signs. What I've been talking about expression a lot, interpretation, expression, whatever. What do we need to do first? We have to make accents. We have to make the music dynamic. Accentuation, articulation, and timing. You could say like, where is phrasing? Because phrasing is something I hear in my piano lesson all the time. Phrasing is important, but phrasing comes from articulation and accentuation. And phrasing in the sense of like having the melodies like stand out, it's a little different in that music. You even don't need the idea of concept of phrasing really that clear unless you play like really 19th century music from Chopin onwards. Music in this time is taught much more from motives. Even Mozart or Haydn, take Beethoven, take his Fifth Symphony, rat-tat-tat-tam, it's just a motive, that's not a melody. Of course I developed that. With Schubert you have even more melodies, but it's music in that time and before is oftentimes taught from motives. So motives, you make motives clear, you distinct the motives one from another by articulation and accentuation. And timing a little bit. Timing is the most difficult one of the three. You have more, you have also, of course, dynamics in the sense of playing louder and softer, but let's stick to those. So I was playing the beginning of this piece very flat. See how it changed when I just add some articulation. I disconnect the first note even. Why? It's like... That's a possibility to say, okay, it's a beginning, but it's also a note that gets an accent. Yum, pa. And but you can also make it in a different way. So really tie it to the next note. But what I want you to do, and what you need to do, I think, in this music, is make that first note, the E, strong. The listener needs to feel like this is like, there you go with the pulse. It's your downbeat. And you know it as a musician. If you play this piece, you should think about your tempo right before you play. You cannot just start playing out of the blue, like with no thoughts. You must have your tempo in your mind. Every musician has that before he starts to play. You need to do that, because otherwise you're just jumping into the piece and there is actually nothing that will guide you yourself. How do you want your listeners to be guided by you if you don't know where to start? So the spells need to be there, and this is like an accent. You see, now I apply the timing as well. I make it a little longer, so my down pulse is like yum. You feel how much energy I now get. It's a little bit overdone now, but I'm doing it just to let you, like you feel what happens. I'm just again flat. Or like down. And now you can say like, Wim, is that not a kind of tempo rubato because you're actually stealing time? I'm actually not. If you would take the metronome, and therefore timing is the most difficult element of expression, because you need to very well control it, and we're not actually used to do that. In Baroque music, yes. People, it's so funny when I just go on the Bach videos that I made in the past, and I apply that, and people actually commend me from that, like saying like, that's great that you do that. When Alberto started to experiment with this, and maybe he did it a little bit too much, because in Beethoven's music it's just the same. We have sources that just literally talk about this. Then people were screaming from the rooftops like, hey, 4/16 notes, can you not just read? So you have to play them equally. Not really. So timing is your luxury expression tool. Now I can give, of course, also dynamic impulse like yeah. Also on the C. So we go from the E to the C. Main notes. All the rest is ornament. So what I do, I just give a little articulation. That's your diction. Could be if you play on the piano that it's nice legato. Becomes a little sweeter. You can play these notes legato as well, the jump. Scarlatti didn't indicate that, so it's up to you. How do we decide what he actually had in mind? We cannot. There is no rule for that. There's like, what do you see this ornament doing, or this jump? Like a very pleasant, like C major. It's like blue sky, and we see some children outside playing, running behind a ball of just doing stuff that children do, like, and they're very happy. Always a little sweeter. The thing you have to keep in mind, that high C needs to have a little bit of emphasis. Here you have a long line. Since we have done so many things like done in the sense like we give a time on the first note, we give an accent on the first note, we give like some special thing on the high C, the music actually has enough energy now just to continue and do nothing. But it's interesting to see how this line is actually built up. We're talking about motives. It's actually very simple. You have the C, and then you have like an ornament around the D, because it's nothing more than... That's actually what Scarlatti is doing, and he's like ornamenting around those notes. And then again an ornament. So much of that music, and you will see that in later music with Mozart, therefore this is a great upstep for Mozart as well. The music itself is very simple. It's the ornamentation that makes the music great. When you enter polyphonic style, then it becomes different. Then you have the ornaments, but you have also the complexity of the music. It's very mind triggering when you have a second voice that imitates the first one. In the case of a fugue, of course, it becomes even much more difficult. But here it's like brought to the simplest way, like just ornament. So if I would overdo that, and I would say like, okay, I want to make sure that my listeners hear all these motifs, and I would do it like this. But again, the music hasn't energy enough. Still, listen what I do with the A. So there is a little bit of timing or articulation if you want here. Just repeating that. So there's a long line. And that is what people typically will say more and more these days, like I have to feel like the end of the note, like here's the end of the phrase, and in order to feel that, let's compress the music a little bit and speed up, and so we arrive there sooner, so that everybody that listens to the music will know that there's the end of the phrase. But I mean, I've never understood that. The end of the phrase, you will arrive there anyways, so when you're there, you just make sure that by articulation, you disconnect it from the next note, or in this case, it's like a repeated note. You can just give the intent to the listener, like now is the end of the phrase, and so you don't need to speed up. In fact, you can even do more in this long line, because 4 bars of... That's a lot. And if you really don't want to do anything more specific to these notes, then of course it becomes very long when you're longing for, not to mention the name longo, for the last note of that line. But here we're going to play with the motives. So we have the announcement of the simple melody there. We know that it is just all ornamentation, but we're going to apply again articulation and a little bit of accentuation. And then we get, for instance, something like this. Like this. Feels perfectly natural to me. What I've done now is adding articulation, some dynamics, like in the sense of accentuation, and also a little bit of timing. They go hand in hand, of course, because if you have a dynamic accent, that requires you to wait a little bit longer. So not always, but it can handle that. And so by doing that, it's like taking some notes that are important or that I think might give the listener a kind of like rest point. It's very subjective because it's very little what I do, but still you are able to see and to feel the motives and to see the organization, the structure. And so I'll bring you through that entire line, which has not so much musicality, it's just a playful ornamentation. But by doing that, it feels pleasant to listen to because the character's open, there's not much going on, and I'm just adding just enough to make you enjoy it. in that sense, it's unbelievable music. I mean, just try it. To have so little musical material and then create something on paper as a composer, to have the listener say like, okay, we all know it's not a Bach invention, it's not a Bach fugue, it's not a Mozart sonata, it's more even like Christian Bach sonatas than all the rest. But in its own form, it's just enough. It is up to us to translate that. And therefore this is great for an upstep to Mozart and all that, this kind of music, because also there you have to find the quality in like the same things that I'm teaching you right now. Articulation and dynamics and timings. So just again, and then that is what I wanted to say. He's adding, of course, a little bit of polyphonic elements here, and that works great. Left hand comes now. So just one more time. The cool thing is, and I hope that really, that once I've told you what my ingredients in my kitchen are, that you hear them and also are able to forget them, because if you constantly hear those, then I'm doing too much. So it should be like very subtle on the background, just enough so that when you eat your soup, it's not just the raw ingredients, there's just enough salt and pepper for you to enjoy it. And if there's too much pepper in the soup, I mean, some of you might enjoy it still, but I think then the quality of the original ingredients, of course, is disturbed. Okay, let's just continue, and maybe not as detailed as I did right now, but always the same thing. Now is a little bit of a different situation because we have now just eighth notes. So the composer is actually taking the music to a slower speed. That's a great tool that composers have that is just undervalued today. When people look at the music, they oftentimes do it in the reverse mode than actually how it was taught back in the day. When you read, for instance, Immanuel Bach, Bach's second son, he wrote a thick book about keyboard playing. And he said, like, when you sight read pieces, you have to page through because you have to find the places that are going to come, that you need to be able to play in the tempo that you choose at the beginning. It gives like a great insight in how people actually played music at the time, and different than we do. We are looking for the places today that actually are the slowest, that have like here 8 notes. And oftentimes we base, not me, but that's how the practice goes today, our tempo based on those places, because the music cannot stand still. But the music doesn't stand still. If you have these micro expressions, if you have the ability also to see that a quarter note has 2 eighth notes, those 2 eighth notes have a life as well, and those 2 eighth notes are divided in 4 16th notes. You don't have to treat those 4 16th notes as one unity. There are 4 16th notes. So you have here eighth notes. The music is dropping in tempo suddenly. So if I arrive here, those are those places that I hope that I don't play wrong notes, because it's quite... This is okay, but the modulation from this, quite dramatic, to this is kind of weird. Especially this, so you go from minor to major, like it's maybe typical Scarlatti. It's actually beautiful. So here you have eighth notes. I do not play them legato. And then you have syncopations, very important. Every time you have a syncopation, you have to do something with that. Again, dynamics apply. Accentuation, how do we accentuate that note? Of course, we play it louder And then again, at syncopation on top of syncopation, it seems very normal to us because we heard it so many times. But in terms of expressive elements, this is of course huge. This is material that you have to work with. You cannot just play that. Articulation, accentuation. And the syncopation is cool, and especially when you have tempos that are actually more on a human scale, so to say, because a syncopation allows you to go against the meter. And that's always very nice for people, because you create like an island where something else is happening. It's a lot of contrast. You shouldn't underestimate that. We have bars that just in 2 4/4 notes, 8-note pulses, and then suddenly we transpose, we actually not transpose, we actually move the meter 1/8 note. That's literally what happens. Again, the articulation, dynamic. So it's difficult, of course, for me to exactly translate to you what I'm doing right now. The moment I create the learning platform that I'm doing for years now, and it will happen, I will have instructions, like detailed instructions for all of these elements for you to practice. It requires, of course, also basic techniques. But it's important now, here on YouTube, that you learn to listen to these elements and start applying them, start experimenting with them. Just think articulation and dynamics. Those go hand in hand, and add a little bit of time. Those 3 things. We will have more, but that's for later. It's too detailed, maybe now. So just we continue. Again, articulation, imagine I do nothing. Make it very fine, even if you play on a piano, which is harder than on the clavichord. On the harpsichord, you have also the possibility to make these notes like very nice and very, very small, so to say. But on the piano, you can do it as well. Reduce your hand movement. Just play. The longo gives forte, which I understand. But to begin with, make it small, make that world small, make it the quality of those notes, make your hand position so that you feel the keys, and then just listen what happens. Because now if you listen to this, I'm sure you will follow every note. And even if I go much, that was not correct by the way, if I go much softer, which is maybe hard on all these microphones here to pick up, but you will come closer to the instrument to listen. Also there at the end, I don't do this. You can do that. So I have a little bit of an articulation gap there. That's difficult though, because if you overdo that, then it breaks completely, like this for instance. Then there is no connection anymore. And connection in music, we were talking about large melodies. Yes, you will feel them automatically. That's how I feel about them. But the pulse has, of course, it's like an elastic strength, and you can break that. So, and then we continue, and then we just finish the first part, and then I think we have enough elements for this video for you to hopefully think about it. Sorry. To practice this. listen here, and also, as you can see, like just the pieces are very unknown to me. Like this is also a typical passage. That's the last passage we will do. Like you need to make sure for yourself what notes are important. To me, that's the most enjoyable thing. You can also think like, okay, we take the lower notes because they land on the strong beats. It's both possible. Or the left hand should not be too boom, boom, boom as I'm playing it right now. It's all a matter of playing expressive and music on the keyboard is, as I said oftentimes, we are not blessed with the most expressive instrument. And then I'm saying this even sitting at the clavichord. I mean, I can influence the tone here. The clavichord is known for its ultra expressiveness. It comes close to like even a violin player, but we don't have the length of tone. Imagine what a violin player can do, what a singer can do with notes, what kind of micro accents they can create, what we are just searching for here to replicate. Thinking as a singer, thinking as from the position of a wind player, of a string player, that's what you need to do. And then you come automatically to these things, sing these melodies, sing that music. If you are comfortable doing that, then you will automatically feel like I'm giving an emphasis, an accent on this note. Why am I doing that? Because the music, I support the composition with that. How do I translate that on the keyboard? How do I translate that on a harpsichord, digital piano or piano? It doesn't matter, it's the same principles. And then you arrive at these elements that we are talking about, these basic elements. And that's like your ingredients and your pepper and salt making the soup. And of course it's experience, it's understanding the score, it's like doing it a lot. It's listening to great players and starting to hear what they're actually doing. Even if it ruins maybe your listening experience a little bit, because you're like listening in an analytical way, but it will teach you what they are actually doing once you know what the ingredients are. So that's the whole point actually of, that was the whole point of this video and the series, like from flat to expressive. I really enjoy making those because also for me it's a discovery. Okay, that I think for this Scarlatti sonata, if you want me to do more Scarlatti sonatas, I'm more than happy to do that. I will share Mozart with you because Mozart is not off of my table. I'm recording it right now. We'll release the first box of I don't know how many CDs in October or November. There is an email list down below in the description box. Just sign up for that. I'm very irregular in sending emails, but if I have something important to tell you, or I think it's important, then I will notify you through that email list. And also don't forget we have a Patreon site. I've seen many people signing up also now for the practicing sessions. They're in the second tier level, but you support the project that we're doing. And if you become a patron, you have direct access to me. You can write any question you have, and those questions you get priority, so to say, from me in the morning when I open my email box. So that's all I've got for you today. Thank you for watching, sharing this video as well, and we see each other very soon again. Bye.